Now, it is my pleasure to introduce today's presenter, Bernie Lawrence. Bernie has a wealth of experience helping enterprise sales teams scale value selling best practices all the way from the front lines to the top. CEO of Lawrence Associates, he helps some of the world's leading global enterprises make wise decisions with a proven framework that helps sales teams improve their bottom line sales outcomes. So with that, Bernie, welcome. And let me give you the presenter rights.
Good afternoon, and for anyone that's visiting us from Asia, good evening. I'm Bernie Lawrence. My firm is Lawrence Associates. At Lawrence Associates, we've been in business now for approximately 20 years, a little over 20 years. We have three main practices. Our first is our business value engineering practice. As Nick has said, that we've worked with clients all over the world to help them develop strategies, design strategies, execute their business value strategies. Our second practice is in just general sales, strategic sales and marketing consulting. And then our last practice is our training, design, development, and delivery practice. Today, we're going to speak about one of the products that we have, which is a 2-day focused, intense workshop around value selling. And we're also going to overlay on the discussion today something that universally we find impacts the ability for our clients to execute their value selling or their value engineering and pricing strategies. And that's something called risk. And there's two areas today that I want to focus on where risk rears its ugly head. One has to do internally with our sales professionals and our sales teams. It's human nature to resist change. And when you go to a performing salesperson and say, hey, we've got the latest and greatest, we want you to adopt and to embrace, you often find that there's a resistance. So the perception is that by changing their modus operandi or their practices, they're going to upset their performance. The other area of risk that we're going to talk about today has to do with our customers. And our customers, we often find, are harboring concerns or things that they believe are going to disrupt their operation to the extent that they're not moving forward with, say, decisions or opportunities that our clients would have in their pipeline. Those are the two areas I'd like to focus on today. Now, what I like to do is when I meet with a new customer or a client, I always like to level set in terms of where they feel their capabilities are from a sales maturation perspective. And we generally just use this simple little diagram. We have 3 levels to our model. The first level, and you'll know you're in these levels based on the characteristics of your sales proficiency or capabilities. In the first level, you pretty much focus, and your salespeople focus on products. They're centric around your products. They know them well, and that's an important capability. We tend to be transaction oriented at level 1. And our relationships are with functionaries. And functionaries is a little derogatory, but nonetheless, it's more the individual contributors that are in our customer base. Engineers, software developers, training professionals, things like that. At level 1, you have the ability to go on offense, meaning that you can confidently lead with the capabilities and even maybe the business value associated with your products. Mostly project focused though. As you graduate to a level 2, you have more of a solutions orientation where you'll hear things like bundles, where you are combining multiple products to meet the customer's needs or demands. You still tend to be project focused. Your relationships tend to get up the chain of command, more with management. You will also develop that additional capability of defending against a competitor, so you have some compete knowledge and capabilities, and you tend to be more focused on an account level approach to your marketplace. When you graduate to level 3, this is where the game changes. And by the way, our practice mostly focuses on helping our customers get from level 2 to level 3. When you achieve the level 3 state of maturity, you're going to find that you truly enjoy a strategic partnership with your customers. Meaning that when you're having conversations with customers, it's not about particularly the feature or function or the utility of your solutions. You're helping your customers deal with their competitive pressures and their competitors. More importantly, you're actually helping your customers improve their ability to enjoy a richer experience with their customers. Your relationships may scan or scale the entire spectrum of the organization levels all the way up to the C-level suites. And you also tend to have a healthy understanding of your customers' industry so that when you're invited to the strategic table and discussions, you can bring valuable insights, trends, things that are of most interest to that level of a customer's organization. So I did a little research trying to prepare for our session today. And one thing is I went to ChatGPT, and my query was this: why do companies fail at executing their value strategies? It was interesting that out of the 7 things that ChatGPT indicated were reasons that strategies, value strategies fail, 3 out of the 7 are associated with the important aspects that we're talking about today around adoption by our sales and embracement of our approaches by our sales professionals and teams, and customers' perceptions of the value they're receiving. But the number 1 reason, lack of employee alignment and engagement. In this case, it's a lack of engagement or a commitment from our employees that leads to inconsistent messaging, a subpar customer experience, and failure to deliver the intended value to customers. We all, I'm sure, face the challenge of keeping our leaders on spot and on point in terms of investing, fostering, reinforcing our strategy of execution and alignment. We might not have in our focus clean enough or clear enough focus on our customers' needs and preferences. The other thing that was noted was ineffective communication and training, where employees, if they don't receive sufficient training on your value proposition and your strategy, your messaging, and importantly, your customer engagement technique, they may struggle to effectively deliver the intended value to customers. Lack of measurement and accountability was also stated and noted, inability to adapt to market changes. And then the 7th was lack of integration across the functions. Alignment between sales, marketing, value pricing, operations, and other departments can lead to inconsistencies in delivering our value, resulting in this failure of our strategy execution. In terms of today, the product that we have is called Building Distinctive Value Propositions. When we go about designing training, and we do a lot of custom development for our clients, the first thing we do is, beyond the needs analysis, what business issue is being addressed and what skills and shifts you want to see in your organization. We start with defining 2 objectives. One is we call the performance objective. The performance objective is what the student should be able to do as a result of successfully completing the training experience. In this case, for this product, our performance objective was to develop, deliver, and defend a value proposition for a qualified opportunity. The next set of objectives that we focus on are what we call, and these are traditionally referred to as the learning objectives. And these are the tasks, the skills, the knowledge that the students must develop in order to actualize the performance objective. And so in this case, we talk about what information is necessary to collect in order to build a strong defendable value proposition, the process around building the value prop and then delivering it and defending it, and then lastly, how do you foster stronger relationships and broaden your presence and positioning within the account. There's basically 2 days. This is quickly the agenda that is in the product. The first day starts with introduction. There's something we call business assessment. We then talk about how you develop a unique solution. The value core is all about the cost benefit analysis. And by the way, the value core is where Leverage Point and Lawrence Associates have a tremendous synergy because their decision models that they build, and I'm assuming a lot of the customers that are on the call today use, are the model in which you actually, develop your value proposition and your financial argument around the proposition you're positioning with your customer. We have a formal module on assessing risks, and we're going to talk about risks, as I said, a little more later in the session. Differentiators, financial analysis, and then finally assembling the value proposition and presentations. All right, so let's level set on how we find value proposition, because universally, if we asked everyone on the call today, your perspective on what a value proposition is going to vary different, slightly or maybe even dramatically from the way we would define what a value proposition is. So let's get simple. A single sentence summary with points of difference whose improvement will deliver the greatest value to the customer in the foreseeable future. And as an example, an investment of $250,000 in a solar heating solution should improve your property resale value by 7%, support your Going Green corporate initiative, and reduce your annual utility costs by 75%, resulting in an internal rate of return of 48% and a payback period of, say, 19 months. On a side note, I actually picked this as an example. This was from one of our clients that we've worked with over the years. But just last week, I had someone literally ring my doorbell, knocking door to door, selling solar panels for houses. So I'm putting them through their paces. And this Friday, I'm going to meet with their sales professional to see what their solar solution will be to help me improve the cost management of my utilities here at the house. The other thing I wanted to share with everyone, and again, this is all kind of context and level setting, has to do with the differences that we perceive between a proposal and a business case. For example, when you're focused on developing a proposal, it's driven predominantly by your sales team. Whereas if you're doing a business case or a value approach, you can't build a business case without extensive and intimate involvement from your customers. So they're a key team member in your engagement model. Proposals tend to reflect a lot of feature functions, whereas in the business case, you want to highlight what improvements the consumption of your and deployment of your solution is going to have on your stakeholders or your customers' business. We tend to focus heavily on technical details, whereas in the business case, you want to make sure that your analysis calls out or teases out those improvements that they're going to have the greatest impact and create the greatest amount of value for your customers and your stakeholders. Proposals tend to ignore risk, whereas with a good, solid, complete business case, risk is a critical element in the overall argument and defendability of your value proposition. Because if your modeling is complete, you can confidently get in front of any audience within your customers, the office of the CFO particularly, and confidently convey that your financial projections are risk adjusted. And lastly, standard proposals have a standard format, whereas in our business case, you want to align and map to the metrics that your customer and your stakeholders use in order to measure their performance against their objectives. So this is the process model that basically underlines the value proposition framework that we highlight and we train to, or in essence, the customer engagement model that we train on in our business value workshops. There's 5 key sections to the framework. The first is something we call a business assessment. In the business assessment, the first thing to do is to identify your stakeholders. We're going to talk about how we define stakeholders. You then would engage those stakeholders in formal, structured interviews to help define how they measure and monitor and manage their success. And then you do a little gap analysis. Where are they against their key objectives and initiatives? Where would they like to be? Because that's the need definition that you hopefully have a solution that can help them address and close that gap. Once you understand the customer's needs, you can then go about developing the proper unique solution. We talk about there's a 3-step process that we observe in order to make sure that your solution is unique and it's going to provide the greatest value and utility to your stakeholders and your customer once they purchase, deploy, manage, and consume your solution. The value core is where we focus on defining and determining and quantifying benefits. Again, the value core is where the leverage point services and solutions really contribute to accelerating the ability to execute on this engagement framework. We also have to, obviously, when you're doing financial modeling and forecasts, you have to estimate what the costs are associated with whatever the solution is. We then have a formal session and organized spot for risk assessment, where we identify the key risks, identify and then estimate what the costs are associated with remediating those risks so that those can be factored into your financial forecasts or your engineering model. And then lastly, what does a good business case look like? What are the key differentiators that you really want to highlight and emphasize as you're developing and more importantly, presenting and then defending that value proposition in your business case? All right. So let's talk about stakeholders. We look at stakeholders as being one of 3 groups. The first one, and everyone focuses on this, and it's natural to do so, which is the decision makers. When we identify decision makers, you want to make sure that your decision makers possess position and personal power, meaning that they have a title and they have the authority and the ability, and in most cases, motivation to make change and to make a decision. The second group of stakeholders that we identify and that we focus on are our influencers. And we define influencers as those individuals within a company. And by the way, there's a lot of research and intellectual property out there, about the fox and, your protagonist, antagonist. Influencers are critical. They possess what we call reputational authority, because decision makers rarely are going to make a decision independent of a collective input from people that they trust and their peers. And there may be, in often cases, we find that there are committees that are now making decisions around investments in business solutions. The other thing is you often find influencers will become your champion, and they'll be your silent salesperson along the line as you're developing your argument and your value proposition with your customer. The last area that we focus on are the users. And by the way, and I have clients that are the largest global software developers. We have HVAC customer. We've got large, telecom customers and everything. What's interesting is that we tend to ignore and dismiss the influence that users have on a decision process. And we focus on the users because those are the people that have to live with the consequence of any decision that's made. The other thing that users are critical for is what we call repurchase loyalty. You might be successful in selling one project or one solution to a customer, but if the users are not content and delighted with the outcome of consuming your solution, guess what? That next opportunity rarely ever emerges. And it's not because your decision makers are displeased or your influencers are unhappy. It's because the users are rejecting the ultimate solution. So in terms of what we call our business assessment matrix, and I said we identify stakeholders, and we tend to identify stakeholders from the three different groups, the decision makers, influencers, and users. We then schedule them for formal interviews, and we structure those interviews. And the structure of the interview is pretty simple. We walk in, we say, tell us the first 3 to 5, factors that are going to be critical to your success. If we look at what the business assessment matrix or the interview resulted in this particular example, we'll talk about Olga Rich. She was VP of Manufacturing. Her first priority for the year was to increase their production capacity. All right, Olga, well, that's interesting. How are you going to measure your progress against meeting your production capacity increase objectives? Well, we simply have one measure that's critical, which is called annual units produced. Simple, okay. Where are you against that annual units produced objective or KPI? Currently, we're producing about 50 million. We need to get 55 million. Okay, great. Well, what are you doing in terms of either a strategy or initiative in order to close that gap and increase your production by that 5 million this year? Well, we're interested in updating the production plan. More importantly, from that strategy, what are the key activities that your organization or you plan on pursuing in order to execute that strategy? Well, the one key initiative that we have or key activity is to improve or to introduce a line automation initiative or to go out and buy some software or manufacturing production plant solution. The next thing, once you identify those opportunities that you've teased out of your prospective customers and stakeholders, we have a 3-step process to identify, how to design the solution. The first is you prioritize. Second is you improve, and the third is enable. Well, when you prioritize, you actually go back to your matrix and you look at the factors that are going to have the biggest impact or frankly the most popular, because often what we find is that our stakeholders have common factors and strategies that they're pursuing. And so to identify and prioritize those CSFs or the critical success factors, you look at the ones that are going to have the biggest impact and create the greatest amount of value, and the ones that are most common. Now, a third factor that we also include are the success factors or strategies that we know that our solution has a direct and most measurable impact on as well. The next thing is you get back to your assessment matrix and you look at those key activities and you determine on what activities your solution is going to have the greatest level of improvement or impact. And then once you do that, you can then take your enablers or the elements of your solution and come up with a unique, highly valuable solution to model in your value proposition or business case. The next thing we do is we focus on identifying those benefits. And by the way, we simplify identifying and classifying benefits into this simple 4x6 matrix. We contend that there are only 4 areas within a customer that you can create value, either help them increase revenues, preserve or protect revenues, reduce or avoid costs. And in this case, and by the way, this matrix is not set in concrete. you can change the column or even the row titles to fit the specific circumstance or scenario that you're faced within your customer. But this is generally a pretty good template to be used to start with. There's two areas within the business or a customer that you can impact based on an investment in a business solution. One is you can help them improve individual tasks, improve an overall function, or generally re-engineer a process. When it comes to the impact you can have on information technology space, you can either help them improve their systems technology, reduce the downtime and performance, their management, security, and then lastly, help them improve their ability to develop, design, and institute innovation through new systems development. We also like, to color code things, because the truth is that if you're presenting and your audience is at the right level, we find that the higher level up an organization, a stakeholder is, the less interest they are in reading copious amounts of narrative or text. They want to see graphics. They tend to be visual. And so we heavily complement anything we do in terms of a work product that's produced for a customer or for a client with impactful and suggestive graphics and images. The next thing is the cost schedule. And again, this has an infinite number of variations. In this case, this was a customer that was in the information technology space, and basically costs buckets or the cost structure, would include the acquisition of whatever the elements are, what implementation would cost, and then ongoing maintenance and operations. And we typically do focus across this spectrum because often people are interested in that, thing we call total cost of ownership. And by the way, we are experts in TCO. We were partners of Gartner with their TCO manager way back when. And so we often find that customers are enamored with TCO, but it's interesting, again, the definition that we would possess in terms of a TCO and what you might or your customers might. You've got to really get refined in terms of exactly what your customer regards as total cost of ownership. Okay, where's my, I lost my, okay. After we've done our value core execution in terms of a business benefits and cost analysis, we then turn to risk. And again, definitions of risk are going to vary, so you need to level set. We try to simplify it to a very understandable and accessible level. We define risks of anything, say potential hazards or impediments that are going to delay or potentially delay, stop, or minimize the success of a proposed project. Now, we go to the extent that we quantify the exposures or what the risks are associated with in terms of our customers' investment in solutions. And so we break it down into a simple arithmetic equation of the probability of an event occurring times the severity of the event if it occurs. The next thing associated with our risk approach, and we have a formal proprietary risk assessment that we use, but we have various buckets, if you will, and they typically revolve around the alignment of the solution to the customer's organization and strategies and imperatives, the maturity and reliability and the confidence that the customer would have in the robustness of our solution, the financial outcomes and returns that are likely to result, the project and organization, which has to do with the organization or the customer's ability to deploy, maintain, and actually consume the solution to the degree that it results in measurable return. And then operations, which really revolves around whether they're capable of consuming, deploying, and maintaining on their own a particular solution in terms of talent, in terms of knowledge, in terms of infrastructure preparedness, things like that. Within each of those 5 or 6 top line buckets, we have probably 10 to 15 different what we call risk factors. The risk factors might, as an example, be solution fit. And in terms of, again, calibrating how big or small a risk is, not only in our mind, but more importantly in the customer's mind, we give them cues around whether it's a low risk to a high risk. In this case, if we're talking about the return of an investment as the risk factor, the low risk cue would be return on this and like projects will be calculated and exceed the financial criteria. Cash inflow will be large and early and realized early in the project's life cycle. It's a high risk cue to a stakeholder if the returns are subject to major assumptions and may vary widely in the possible outcomes. The cash flows are uncertain and returns cannot be easily measured. Now let's talk about what this means. We said that there are 2 areas of risk that we tend to universally experience when we work with clients, and more importantly, when we work with our clients' customers. First is in terms of the concerns or hesitancy that customers have associated with making a decision around one of our clients' solutions. So what we do is we sit down and we formally take the customer's customer through the risk matrix or risk tool that we've developed. And more often than not, what the outcome is that the customer was harboring concerns about any number of issues that were simply not sourced during the qualification or the needs assessment process. Now, another area that using risk is marvelous is that, let's say you have an opportunity, you've got a customer, but you're aware of someone that's an antagonist, someone that's not really a big proponent of your company or your solution. Those are the stakeholders that you want to deliberately focus on and address with doing the risk assessment. Because more often than not, you can neutralize a lot of the concerns that they're harboring about moving forward with your solution. The other thing is, and it's again, the 2 areas of risk: adoption by our sales professionals, adoption and input and support of a solution being proposed by customers with our salespeople. It's human nature, particularly with salespeople, and I've got 30, 40 years of sales experience, and in any event, it's human nature. The salespeople will naturally avoid talking about something that is negative, particularly about risk, which I have found and we have found over the years is the absolute improper posture for our sales organization to possess. Risk should not be a negative. Risk needs to be a positive. And often what we find when we do, say, for example, a strategic sales initiative with our customers is the first thing they want to say is, hey, we've got opportunities that are stagnant or really, backed up in our pipeline, and we don't know why. So the first thing we do is we do analysis, deep dive into a specific opportunity and pipeline analysis. And invariably, we find that risk is one of the number 1 reasons that pipeline opportunities stall, and it retards the performance of companies' growth and sales performance. Now, we also get to the point where we get down and in order to quantify, we measure probability impact, you develop a mitigation plan, and then you identify and you quantify what and how much that mitigation plan is going to cost, such that you can then include the cost of risk adjustment in your financial forecasts and your models. The other thing, as I said before, we like to complement anything we produce in terms of a work product to either an end customer or to our clients with the impactful and suggestive, easily consumed graphics or images. And here our risk statement is concluded with a simple diagram: high impact, low probability, and any of the items, any of the factors that were identified in the risk analysis with the stakeholders, you can then visually see why they are being called out as impediments to the success of the project and need to be factored in and mitigated, and the costs associated with those remediation or mitigations in your overall financial modeling. We then have a module in terms of the financials. Another thing that we find universally is that sales professionals, and it varies dramatically, sales professionals are not all that enamored or accustomed to dealing with financial things like cash flow statements, concepts like time value of money, discount rate, net present value, and the one that tends to terrify everyone is internal rate of return. But by the way, when you're talking to a CFO, the number one measure that a CFO makes investment decisions around in general is internal rate of return. So it's important to demystify these concepts. And so we have a full module on explaining in very consumable and very accessible methods to someone in layman that's not a finance MBA, so as to again minimize that resistance and that perception of risk. I don't want to get caught in a discussion where terms are being discussed and I'm clueless as to what those terms are. So it's important that you educate and you get your salespeople comfortable with some of the most common financial terms. The other thing is these are critical because depending on how you structure the output of your financial modeling, a lot of these terms are going to be included or elements of that financial model. So anyone that is presenting the outcome of your value engineering efforts and your pricing efforts have to be comfortable and knowledgeable about these topics. The other way that when it comes to the actual financial analysis or output that would be generated is you tend to align and map to those financial measures that are of most interest or critical to your customers' normal financial investment practices. The last module is how do you, once you've collected the information, you've validated it, you've quantified the benefits and the costs, you've got a distinct solution that hits the highest value needs and challenges that your customer's experiencing. You address the factor and eliminate risk as a hindrance to the project success and the movement of that opportunity through the sales pipeline. You then collectively organize that information into a business case. In this case, we typically start with a format that calls for an executive summary where you have that, and believe it or not, we often lead with that single sentence value proposition in the executive summary. All right, because if you have the right level of audience, the first thing they're going to want to know, okay, if I give you something of value, like for example, if I spend money on your solution, what is that going to do for me in terms of helping me improve the performance of not only my organization, but my business in general? We then also cover observations and recommendations because, believe it or not, in this whole process, there are two things that are going to come out of it. One, and by the way, I didn't cover this, but we cover this extensively in our training interventions, is that when you do the proper analysis and interviewing and assessment of their business, sometimes you're going to find that the opportunity that you're trying to value model for your customer really isn't an opportunity. The customer's interest is not at the level you thought it was. You thought that the budget was available. It may not be there. Some other conflicting strategies that the customer or imperatives and initiatives the customer's pursuing are going to conflict with them moving forward with your opportunity. Well, you're going to be able to identify that up front in the process. And if you think about it, how many people know the sales, and I know I've experienced this over my career as a sales professional. I got way down the sales cycle and realized that the qualification wasn't done properly. All right. Now, the second thing is that through that assessment approach and practice, you will identify more opportunities than you could possibly effectively address in the next 12 to 18 months. That is almost universally, again, an outcome that we find our clients enjoy once they deploy this customer engagement approach. We do the business assessment summary, the solution description, the value core, financial assessment conclusions, typical stuff that you're going to find in a well-written and constructed business case. Now, as I said, one of the three practices that we focus on at Lawrence Associates is our training, design, development, and delivery. When we design a solution or a course or enablement tool for our customers, and you may or may not be familiar with something in the industry that is called the Kirkpatrick scale, which is basically there's 4 levels of the ways in which to measure the return on investment, particularly in training or readiness. The first level is called the evaluation, which is basically, we call them in the industry smile sheets. They're evaluations, and in fact, you're going to be hopefully taking the time to perform an evaluation level 1 for us at the end of our presentation today, at the end of the seminar. That basically highlights the experience that the students enjoyed in the session. The second level is a measurement on whether the students, having gone through the training, can apply in either a case scenario or a real life scenario the skills, capabilities that they learned in the training. The third level is a sustained, observable ability for behavioral change on the job. And the last and the fourth level is you can actually quantify, either by way of increasing revenues, protecting revenues, reducing costs, or avoiding costs in the business proper. So those are the 4 levels. When we design our courses or training solutions for customers, at a minimum, we look to achieve a second level ability to measure the investments return. In this case, for this particular product, we have a competition at the end of the 2 days where the students, and we cluster in this course, the students in teams of 4 to 5, and they spend the second half of the second day actually building out a value proposition or a business case for either a case study, which is something we produce, or we have them bring in opportunities that they're actively working on within their pipeline in their accounts or territories. And we have them, as a result, as a takeaway, they have an actionable business case that they can then take to their client or customers and be confident that they can present it and, more importantly, defend it, because we actually do cover quite extensively, the tips and tricks that our extensive roster of professionals that deliver this presentation have experienced over their careers as sales professionals. So in summary, value selling has tremendous opportunities, although you're going to find that training and enablement is something key. And when I say training, you're talking about something like our business value 2-day workshop. The enablement is the modeling SaaS solutions that you get from Leverage Point, and the framework that is underpinning the value prop 2-day workshop that we just talked about. It facilitates the adoption and the embrace by your employees. They're crucial elements needed if you're trying to optimize or even execute any value strategy. With that, Nick, I'm going to turn it back over to you, and we can wrap it up.
Cool. Thank you, Bernie, for sharing your insights. It's a great presentation, and as Bernie mentioned, we can feel free to indicate in the exit survey if you're interested in learning more about what Lawrence and Associates offers from a training standpoint. Now, to give everyone some time to enter some last-second questions for the Q&A, I'd like to introduce Brian Hannon, who is our VP of Sales here at Leverage Point. We'll do a brief overview of how Leverage Point can put the methodology and value selling practices like Bernie talked about into action using our SaaS platform. So Brian, take it away.
Great, thanks, Nick. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yep.
All right, and you can see my screen.
Confirmed.
Great, and thank you, Bernie. Great presentation. Love the framing of the 2 types of risk. We talk about that all the time, and I'll touch on that, I think, as I go through this. For everyone out there, my goal is just to give you a very quick, under 5-minute mini demonstration of a value story. And if you think about everything Bernie talked about, a lot of that is knowledge that will feed directly into the type of value stories that we provide. So they kind of synchronize with each other very well. And feeding into a value story that is kind of digital and interactive, it really addresses one part of this risk discussion, which is helping salespeople execute those value conversations. That's the biggest challenge we see at customers and in our business, to be honest, is trying to increase and improve both the quality but also the quantity of these value conversations. Many salespeople end up never doing it, and a lot of that gets back to risk. They are afraid of changing. They are afraid of maybe looking awkward or looking unintelligent, uninformed in front of their customers. So the best way to reduce that risk is not to try something new at all, which of course we know it's going to be hard to improve unless they actually execute on that. So what we provide, as I mentioned, is a way for both marketing organizations to create value stories, as well as salespeople to have these interactive value conversations. So I'm going to show you a very quick demo of a value story for a fictitious company called Valorum Chemicals. And it's a coating solution, or essentially paint for a car. And we're going to speak with BMW today. So as a salesperson, I'll begin to go through the value story and start to present that to the folks at BMW. I may have done some prep before, and there's actually a screen that we can use as a salesperson to kind of prepare and basically enter in some of the information we know about the account. Hopefully, maybe we've even done some deeper analysis with someone at the account to kind of confirm some of this information as well. But then as we have the meeting itself, we would then go through and have this interactive conversation. Now, many of our value stories are broken into chapters to kind of segment where the conversation is going. Chapter 1 is typically a features and benefits discussion about kind of what we're going to talk about. We might start to talk about our value proposition at a high level, and then we might start to gather some information from the customer. So this is where the preparation comes in handy and is important, because what we've done for the salespeople here is set up questions that they can ask the customer, which might be questions they asked today already, but now the answers to those questions actually feed the value story itself. And the customer then can see that the data they're giving and what they're providing is helping to frame and to set up what becomes the business case. So they're more likely to participate in this back and forth with the salesperson if they think that the data that they're providing is going to help them learn something about their business as well. So we can use this to demonstrate that we've thought about their business, but also use it to build that business case itself. Now, chapter 2 gets into specific value drivers. This is actually where we would start to think about that second part of risk, which is potentially a risk-based value driver, and we would build that into the story. So if you think about what Bernie showed, he actually showed a great chart, which I loved, showing kind of the level of severity and maybe the level of occurrence of risks. You can build those charts directly into these value stories, and we can help you do that. And then, of course, you can set numbers to those as well. We don't have a risk value driver in this example, but that's okay. As we start to get into projecting value, we would then be able to show BMW, hey, based on our analysis and some of the initial information, we think there's a potential value of $1.7 million per year here. But of course, we need to sort of back up and justify our analysis. So here we get into the third chapter where we're going to go into each of those value drivers. Again, one might be risk, but we might have cost reduction value drivers. We might have revenue increase value drivers. This example here has different types, and it also gets us into some analysis of the environmental impact, particularly in being able to reduce auto fuel costs for this particular example. So we would go through each one of these. We might have different charts and graphs that we use to demonstrate, but then we kind of summarize with other charts and graphs based on what we're trying to do. So Leverage Point will help you think through the story itself, will help you think about some of the terms that Bernie mentioned, internal or hurdle rate or internal rates that a CFO is thinking about, and you can have those charts and graphs set up so that you're introducing the information in a way that the CFO will accept and would appreciate, and that you've kind of set that up beforehand so they know that you're thinking about their process and helping them along with that. So this is a obviously very quick example of a value story. At the end of these, of course, we can save these. We can also export these into a PDF or a PowerPoint, which would allow our customer to then kind of take it with them. We also have the ability to send links to the customers, or have you send links to the customers, so that they have some access to the value story itself. They can make changes on their own. Those are decisions that you make on how you want to use the platform. Some folks want to have control and be on the conversation the whole time. Other folks are okay opening up the value stories for their customers and giving them access sort of after initial conversation as well. So usually within about 30 to 60 seconds, we have a PDF that we can send them. You can also save these and link them into a CRM system like Salesforce.com, which would allow during funnel reviews your management and your peers to be able to see the particular business case that's been generated for a particular opportunity, and be able to kind of talk through that during the process of reviewing a funnel. So with that, I think I'm probably over my 5 minutes, and I will pass this back to Nick.
Great. Thank you, Brian. So let me just pop my screen back up. So we're running up against the hour. So let me get my webcam shared. So I think we probably have time for one or two questions quickly, Bernie, if that's okay. You ready?
That's fine. Go ahead.
So I think the first one got via email. So we talked a lot about like tangible value drivers and quantifying them. How would you handle kind of some more intangible ones in trying to measure the impact of that in your framework?
I'm sorry, what you got to be a little more.
Like intangible value drivers, such as like client satisfaction, or proximity benefits, or stuff that's not a little bit hard to quantify the dollars and cents. How would you handle that from a risk standpoint, but also within the context of your framework?
Okay, so typically benefits would be identified as either quantifiable or hard benefits or soft benefits. Soft benefits, are productivity improvements, which, by the way, you want to emphasize your hard benefits, things that are recognized as being directly impacting, the profit loss or the income statement. Soft benefits, though, don't ignore them if that's something that the customer is of greatest interest in. Like, for example, we did a study with it was T-Mobile at the time. They were looking at putting in a new point of sale system in I don't know how many, 2,500, 3,000 different retail outlets. And when talking with the president of their retail division, he said, I don't care about one unit of measure, and that's my conversion rate, right? Meaning that if someone walks in the door, I want to know what my conversion rate is, customer buying something versus just kicking the, window shopping. And so we actually worked, with some of his managers actually at the store level, and came up with a little bit of a equation that allowed for what an effective point of sale solution, and it started with the little handheld tablet and whatnot, would mean in terms of improving the conversion rate. And ultimately, the business case that we helped T-Mobile put together went to their board of directors, which they're owned by Deutsche Telekom, and they were able to secure an $80 million investment to replace their point of sale systems across all of those different retail outlets that they had globally.
Great example. So I think we have one more that we could probably do answer quickly is what is the right audience for the type of training that you're talking about? The more senior, frontline sales reps? What would you say?
That's a great question. And it has, crossed the entire spectrum of people that are even non-sales people, all the way through the most senior level experienced sales professionals. And it's across any number of industries. We tend to have a focus on high tech, like I said, software, telecom, but we have publishing, we have state governments, we have HVAC. In any event, the maturity level can vary. Really doesn't matter. What's key, though, is that if you have anyone that's involved in your value, along the value strategy chain, they should be aware of how your sales force are engaging their customers, because that's going to contribute to the elements that you're going to include in whatever you're producing as an enablement tool or knowledge and information for your salespeople. To marketing, support, it really varies. So, and we get tremendous reviews from customers. We've even had consultants that are very technical cloud architects that have gone through the course and have said that it's one of the best courses that they've non-technical courses that they've been through, because it really enlighten them on a lot of the things the sales has to do in order to successfully, get the decision to move an opportunity or like a cloud migration decision forward.
Great, and having sat through many of those in the past, I know the importance of driving that sort of alignment across the team. So thank you so much for your time, Bernie. I know we're running up a little past the hour. And that actually is a great segue to next month's webinar, which is all about marketing and sales alignment. So we talk a lot about value selling and leverage point, but what if you could get your customers and prospects excited about your solution's value earlier in the sales process? So in September, we're going to be joined again by Brian Hannon, along with our VP of Product, Aaron Miller, and we're going to be sharing some exciting leverage point product updates that will help with this sales and marketing alignment and help them develop content that support the value selling journey all the way from the early points in the sales funnel in an interactive manner. So some exciting stuff. So if you're excited to see it, please register in the exit survey. We're going to fix down the date in late September for that. And that'll be it from us today. So thank you for Bernie for joining us and sharing his knowledge and expertise. And thank you, Brian, for showing the demo of Leverage Point. And from all of us here at Leverage Point, have a great rest of your summer. And we'll see you back here in early fall. Take care.